Warriors. There's a lot to talk about this week, but let's focus in on a couple of good things. The first thing is just a couple of days ago, 225 people, including children, 42 children, were found in an operation from our U.S. Marshals in conjunction with the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. We call it NCMEC. Some people say NCMEC. NCMEC is what I say, NCMEC, an operation that found us 42 kids. And this was 16 different locations across the United States, including the Virgin Islands and Guam. Anytime we find one child, it's a celebration. So there are things being done behind the scenes that are very encouraging, because we tend to always tell you how bad everything is, and it is, don't get me wrong, but we want to bring you good news when we have it. So Operation We Will Find You. And keep in mind, there are other operations on a nonstop basis going on. So this is good news. Always go to lynswarriors.org or follow me on Twitter or Facebook so you can read the entire articles, reports, studies, press releases. So that's good news. The other good news is on July 4th, the Warriors will be working with Operation Underground Railroad. They are releasing a new film in conjunction with a film company in LA, and it's all about human trafficking. And remember, it's a Hollywood theatrical release, but it's based on the story of Tim Ballard, ex-Navy SEAL, who started Operation Underground Railroad. So I'll leave that for a minute. As we move along this week, I'll have more information about that. We plan on doing a screening here in New York City sometime in July, so the clock is ticking, and inviting everybody to attend, because the more we talk about it, the more we share information, the more you get involved. And your involvement is, I don't know, share a tweet, share it on Facebook. You might have a child, you might have a grandchild, you might have a neighbor. To be aware, because it's 2023. What do I always tell you? Culture shift. We have to be aware of so many things now. So that's good news. I'll give you more about the film as it's rolling out. And then I've been working very hard all week. As I always tell you, I do these videos very late at night. There's something so disturbing, and it's based here in New York, where I am. But what you have to understand is New York is always looked to as kind of a role model. We already know there's the rhetoric across the United States. If it gets passed, in New York, if it happens in New York, now I'm talking about with the sex trade, then we can do it in our city, our town. And you have to remember, because I was talking with somebody today who is based in the Ozarks, right? And she was saying that we were talking about illegals, we were talking about drugs, what does she see in the communities around Springfield, Missouri? And I pointed out, and I'll point out to you that, I'm in New York City, so we've seen a lot of activity with illegals, illegal aliens, I call them. They're not migrants. I'm sorry, everybody. I feel horrified for children, unaccompanied minors. But the bottom line is, they're breaking into our country. We have open borders. You think other countries would let us do that? No way. So they're illegal aliens. Come here legally. And, 1 million people do come here legally. They follow all the rules every single year. And 1 million come on work visas. That's 2 million people. But these are millions and millions just breaking into our country. And it's funny because somebody I was interviewing, and he's become a friend, Mike Cutler, a retired INS special service agent, was saying, think of it this way, Lynn. You're waiting online at the airport. You have to go through TSA. And all of a sudden, people walk past you. And you would say automatically, like, hey, what about them? He said, think of it that way. It's a good analogy. So although, again, I want to say I feel horrified, it's horrific. These people are going to end up in your community. You may not be seeing them now, but as I told my friend today, they will not be staying, the majority of them, in our major cities where they are being these sanctuary cities, right? We have a mayor now who's crying out for federal help and doing all sorts of things. And a couple of days ago, at the end of last week, they stopped releasing the numbers of migrants arriving in New York City. It was said to be 1,000 a day. Remember, I always think if whatever number they tell you, the numbers are always higher. So if they said 1,000, I don't know what that number is, but higher. Stop giving out the daily stats on all of this. And we also know that they're being bused to other communities, upstate New York, into the Catskills. Interestingly enough, our governor, Kathy Hochul, and again, it's very, very quiet since the end of this Title 42. I don't know what's going on. Makes you wonder. I mean, I think I have a pretty good idea. They didn't want the optics, the surge, to be so apparent. So it's a very complicit operation and organized between Mexico, between the cartels, between our U.S. government to make this look very, stay in the background. Whose mainstream media is really not talking about the border? Again, I don't sit around all day. I'm busy. I'm a warrior watching mainstream media. So I don't really know what they're reporting. I get little tidbits here and there. I see things online during the day. But I know a lot of the Governor Kathy Hochul here in New York. She was overriding everything. And she said she would be busing these illegal aliens to 25 different areas. Interestingly enough, when you do your homework, when you do your research, warriors, these 25 areas are all Republican-led. Also, the county of Lee Zeldin, who was running for governor, her opponent, and did pretty well in the race for governor, considering everything that's going on, and wants to send them to his area out on Long Island. So we see there is complicity. We see there is evilness happening. Now, the thing I want to point out to you, and is so important, so keep that in mind. When people say, well, I don't see anything, it's not coming my way. If you're in the Ozarks, if you're out in Jersey somewhere, Sussex County, Warren County, it's eventually coming your way. Be aware. What I want to point out to you is the warriors. We are part of New Yorkers for the Equality Model. And I put my glasses on so I can read this appropriately to you because I just received it a little while ago. And I want to get all the information to you correctly. We are putting out a press release entitled Sex Trade Survivor-Led Coalition Calls for Removal of Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. And I want to read this to you correctly since I received it not that long ago. I want to make sure I share all the correct facts with you. And that would be, we are putting out a press release and titled Sex Trade Survivor-Led Coalition Calls for Removal of Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas as chair of the Human Trafficking Subcommittee. This is in Albany, New Yorkers for the Equality Model, which the Warriors is part of the coalition. Bipartisan, by the way, a survivor-led coalition of over 30 direct service providers and advocacy organizations across New York State working to prevent and combat human trafficking and sexual exploitation. Call on Speaker Carl E. Hesty to remove Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, District 34, as chair of the Human Trafficking Subcommittee, evoking conflicts of interest. Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas is very public about her support of the sex trade, including sex buying, brothel owning, and pimping, and calls for its decriminalization. She recently announced her co-sponsorship of Assemblymember Chantel Jackson's deceptively named the Stop Violence in the Sex Trades Act. No jurisdiction in the world has ever been able to stop the violence that is inherent to the sex trade bill. A7175 guts New York's anti-trafficking laws and legalizes patronizing sex buyers, pimping, and sex tourism. These and other provisions of the bill would greenlight the sex trade and exponentially increase sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. Warriors, when I hear this, I get crazy. Excuse me. I could break out in crying and anger all at the same time. Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas' unequivocal endorsement of the sex trade is deeply incompatible with her responsibilities as chair of the Human Trafficking Subcommittee. She's therefore not in a position to safeguard New York's groundbreaking legislation and commitments to combating human trafficking for purposes of sexual exploitation. Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas is championing a bill that would make vulnerable populations, especially marginalized children, women of color, transgender, and gender nonconforming youth populations. The assembly member presumably wants to protect key targets for pimps, sex traffickers, and other exploiters. So our coalition calls for an end to the arrest and incarceration solely of prostituted individuals who are overwhelmingly women, girls, populations of color. We want to offer them comprehensive services, holding the perpetrators, including sex buyers, accountable for the harm they perpetrate. And we have had the Sex Trade Survivors Justice and Equality Act on the books. Again, bipartisan. And again, excuse me, everybody. I'm so angry about this. We've been working so hard pre-COVID, during COVID. I hate to bring that word up, but I have to fight all of this. It's been simmering now very quietly because nothing was getting done during that period, as you know. And now all of a sudden, as predicted, somebody who should be on the New York Human Trafficking Committee, who's working to supposedly prevent it, is endorsing a bill. Sorry, Warriors. Endorsing a bill that will legalize pimping, trafficking, brothel owning, those illicit spas we keep hearing about, sex buying. I sent out a newsletter this morning, Warrior Wednesday. Please sign up. Go to lynswarriors.org, scroll down, e-newsletter. And this was before this press release. I knew it was coming out, was being worked on, and is all about the equality model. And I called it, do you want a brothel next door? And the point is, this is happening in New York. We know from our sources around the country, they're wanting to call New York, the New York State, the sex tourism capital of the country. They would love to see women in windows all around Times Square and other areas. We're not going to have it. You're not going to have it. Now, this will filter into your communities. If nothing else, it is, and I know you see all this, Warriors, the normalization of the sexualization of our kids, and all the sex trade, right? There's so many things happening. My bells have been going off all week long. First of all, the demand is for children. I tell you that all the time. As hard as that is for me to say it and for you to think about, the demand, the younger, the better. You know this, right? That's the goal here. The goal here is, and you see it, the lines are very blurred. Not blurred anymore, very blatant. We're seeing what's happening. Target, Kohl's, Balenciaga. We're going through the CEI, this corporate equity index. And I keep saying, where are the stockholders? Where are the shareholders? Why aren't we hearing from them? Why aren't they voicing displeasure? Because usually the bottom line of anything is making money, no matter what that is, make the money. And they're losing a lot of money. So what's going on? It's the agenda. It's what is decided upon, I would believe, on Wall Street. Excuse me again, Warriors. It's the only thing I can think of. Marching orders. You do as we say, corporate equity index. You're all going to do it. And now to hear today that Chick-fil-A may be doing something. Chick-fil-A, when you lose Chick-fil-A, you lose America. Very profitable company. Why would they be doing this? Christian company. Why would they be doing this? It warrants more investigation, which I'll get to. But let's see what's happening there. We know what's going on in the schools. We know what's going on in the media. We know what's going on in the entertainment landscape. Even the Little Mermaid movie, the reboot that just came out. The New York Times reviewer had to put in the title, Not Enough Kink. It's supposed to be a kid's movie, which, by the way, has, as you can imagine, and I don't like the word woke, but you know what I'm talking about. Every woke reference you can imagine, but putting the word kink, not enough kink. It's supposed to be a kid's movie. So we see that the lines are just this coming together, adults and children all becoming one. I was even looking at the story of Al Pacino, supposedly 82 years old, with the 29-year-old girlfriend, and she's pregnant. And I'm thinking, De Niro, I think he's got a girlfriend and she's pregnant. I think he's in his 80s too. Blurring, in other words, these young women with these older men. It's just one big normalization. There's even a horrendous new, I don't even want to give it credit. I have to investigate a little bit, called, I think it's called The Idol. It's worse than that show Euphoria I've been railing about for the last couple of years. Now, although the actors in it may be 18 and older, they are portraying teenagers having rampant sex, doing drugs, all kinds of things. So you know the kids are going to be drawn to shows like that, right? Because they're portraying high school students. And the new one, I have not witnessed any of it myself, I hear is just horrific. So there's more of that. You have to remember, in streaming, there's no rules with streaming. It's the genie out of the bottle. No ratings, which nobody pays attention to anyway, and no accountability, no anything. It's kind of like, social media, no accountability, right? Genie out of the bottle. And now we're faced with AI and AGI. Again, genie out of the bottle. And there are all these calls for, let's stop it for 6 months, the artificial intelligence, all these tech big deals, big wigs. Well, why wouldn't you do that while you're developing it? I mean, it's here. It's not coming. I corrected a few people today. They're like, it's coming. It's coming. It's not coming. It's here. Remember, anytime we hear about something or it's launched, it's been here for 5 years. Why wouldn't they have developed safety features, filters, safety measures as they were developing this? Because they don't want to. Will it overtake mankind? Remains to be seen, but we have a lot of other things we have to worry about before. AI and all this, just so much going on, warriors. So what do I want you to do? I want you to take care of your kids. I want you to talk to your kids. I want you to be open and honest with each other. I want you to understand what's going on. I want you to follow lynswarriors.org. I want you to step up when I ask you to write to house.gov, senate.gov, to voice your displeasure. If you're listening to this and you're in New York State, please go to house.gov right now. Please find out who represents you. We only have a couple of people. Hit the button to their email. We will not have the full decriminalization of the sex trade with legalized brothels, pimping, trafficking, and more in our communities. Please, please, please. The good news also is more and more kids are starting, especially high school kids, putting down the devices. There's a great article by Karen Hunt on Substack, if you subscribe to that, or you should. And actually, I also put it on my Twitter, lynswarriors.org, about the Luddite kids putting down the devices or getting the flip phones. So there is a movement. The Warriors will also be partnering up with doing a little more work with Gab Wireless. Gab is, your child can have, looks like a smartphone, looks like one of those smartwatches, but it has no internet. It's completely safe, yet it makes them feel like they're part of the group without being subject to a lot of that horrible stuff. But that being said, their friend could have a phone with the internet. So you still have to talk to your kids. You still have to put limitations. You still have to say, we own these devices together. It's a family digital partnership. It's not their phone, your phone. We come together. You have homework to do. There's a lot to do. There's a lot heating up. On any given day, we have 2,300 children just missing in the United States. Where are all the kids? Now we've got all these, what are called unaccompanied minors. Where are all these children? We have many states, I spoke to you earlier about this in another video, relaxing child labor laws. Wisconsin is working on that right now. Ohio has done it. New Jersey has done it. You have to know these things. If you live in Sussex County, New Jersey, running for New Jersey State Assembly, and I interviewed him today. That interview will go up tomorrow. Josh Akins, dad of two, husband, and I should have said husband, dad of two. I guess it doesn't matter. Board of Ed president, 40-year-old young man. He is invested. His platform is, parental rights, family rights, protecting the family, education. If you're in the Sussex County and you're voting, please do. But his plan, Josh Akins, is the plan that we need across America. And a lot of people are stepping up. So again, there's power in numbers. We have to keep talking about it. I keep talking about this full decriminalization. We have to understand we want the equality model. We want those in the sex trade, should they want. We want to bring them out of it, and up to 97% want out. That's a high number of warriors. Give them housing, services, holistic, medical, psychological, education, job training, job partnerships with corporations. Get them out, reduce demand, right? Get them out, get them out. How do you reduce demand? Hold the sex buyers accountable, hold the pimps accountable, traffickers accountable. But you need laws for that. And they're fighting so hard right now to have one big free for all. Remember the demands for kids in the sex trade. You think I'm kidding? You couldn't handle probably if I told you things I know, because they're too horrific. You couldn't imagine that people do these things, come up with these things, want to do these things. I've seen the most hardened law enforcement crumble. I've seen judges cry behind the scenes because they say they don't know what to do, who've been working around this their entire careers. We're not going to stop it. What we can do is work on laws and legislation. In the meantime, I'm going to remind you again, take care of your kids, take care of your grandkids, talk to them. We do not co-parent with the government. Parental autonomy. Read, research, be on top of those children, understand what's going on in their schools, understand what their homework is, understand what their curriculum is. If you get into the groove of this family digital partnership, I know everybody's busy. I know everybody's overwhelmed. They will open up to you. The kids want our attention. They want our focus. Even the teens that you think aren't paying attention, they are. Come together, start talking. They're your children. I know it's hard, but we're going to do this. We have no choice. This is truly a war on for our children. And I leave you with this. Community creates change each and every day. Be a warrior.